Welcome to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when Raw became war and attitude ruled. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
I'm here to rip ass on Wrasslin Raw podcast.
What's that smell?
Joe Giammatteo.
Bartlett, I find you to be a swell guy.
I love you. I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett. We're going to examine WWE history, one episode of Raw is War at a time. But first, man, I gotta say, it feels like I just haven't been here in forever.
18%er business.
Yep.
What is that? It's once a weekend, a month, a week every summer, or?
I don't know, whatever 18% of any given frame of time is, I suppose. So it's whatever I want it to be. It's amazing. It's a hell of a way to live. But because I feel guilty about that, I feel like we should catch up on some mail. Mail call! We had some positive interactions with fans online from YouTube, specifically on our WrestleMania 14 episode. YouTube user Chris Uncle Ahmad, I think I'm saying that right, said, still my favorite WrestleMania of all time for its memorability and importance. And I'm not sure I completely agree with that, just because I can't remember a lot of the WrestleManias, but a hell of an opinion that has a lot of credibility to it, we'll say, some veracity to it, because it was one hell of a WrestleMania.
And I don't think he's probably alone with that mindset.
Yeah, not at all.
He's talking about 14, right? The one we just, yeah. Yeah, it's memorable.
Yeah, he had some people arguing with him there, but we're not gonna give in to the haters here on the podcast. But
we're doing a quick run-in to save him, actually.
I do want to highlight a hater that I'm not going to drop their name, but they left a fucking comment saying that they were immediately dismissing our podcast on YouTube because they did not and were not able to see our faces.
I can understand that would be upsetting to not see our beautiful mugs.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get it up without seeing my own face. I can understand how he might not, so...
If he was able to see our faces, he'd probably say, take a look at that kisser.
Look at the mush,
if you will.
But I wanted to say thank you to all of our YouTube listeners who, by the way, have been exploding all over the place without seeing our faces. Now that we've entered into the Attitude Era, our listens and views and all that stuff has been growing exponentially. So thank you all for that. And thank you for staring at our man Diego's artwork that he did for us, which is what you see on YouTube. So yeah, thank you, all of you, for not being a nitpicking dickbag about the way that we present our free podcast to you. With that being said, in this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on March 30th, 1998. This Raw was recorded at the Pepsi Arena in Albany, New York, and features Jim Ross, Jerry the King Lawler, and Michael Cole on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I am ready.
Ready.
All right, then, let's get into it. The opening of this episode had a very, wide world of sports feel to it. Epic music. It sounded like a knockoff of a variety of things, so I had to assume it was a Jim Johnston original.
Very patriotic sounding music. It was
almost like American Gladiators in a way.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, this is the first Raw after WrestleMania, so we had to get in a lot of video highlights. There was a big array set against that epic sports music. And after the proper intro, we came to commentary and a two-man booth. No Kevin Kelly there tonight. That does not bode well for Oh My God Kelly. But I couldn't even hear what commentary was saying over the first chants for Austin. My God, the crowd was already lit up. That very quickly, though, transitioned to boos for Vince McMahon as he made his way to the ring with a shit-eating grin on his face. And you could tell there was no longer any kind of conservative approach here. This Mr. McMahon might as well have had a do-rag and a swagger. This is full-blown Mr. McMahon. Vince couldn't tell if the mic was working. That's how loud the crowd was, or at least that's how he played it, which I loved. Vince introduced Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the place just fucking exploded. It exploded. Vince on the mic, he wanted to clear up any kind of misunderstanding between the two of them. And the truth is that Mr. McMahon is proud of Austin, happy for Austin to be representing the company together with Vince McMahon. Austin wasn't being fooled, though, and got right down to popping the crowd with every fucking sentence out of his mouth. Vince did slip up while trying to placate Austin, though. He said that he loved Austin. Austin wouldn't drop that. He kept coming back to it, and that was pretty funny. But the bottom line here is that Austin is going to raise hell, and nobody is going to stop him or tell him how to do that. I popped my ass off when Vince offered Austin the easy way or the hard way, because I had a good idea of what the hard way was going to end up being. And sure enough, Vince once again did a shitty job of selling a stunner.
Maybe slightly better than the first one, but pretty shitty still.
Minimally better. I'll give it to you that it was better.
A hair.
Minimally. This is while JR was yelling, "He'll never be Employee of the Month!" And that pretty much wrapped this up. You could tell by the smile on Austin's face as he was walking away that the money was going to be rolling in. And after a commercial break, we got some reviews of that and a great view of Sergeant Slaughter and Jerry Briscoe working on Mr. McMahon in the back there, helping him recover from the stunner. Guys, we knew that this was a whole new era. But by God, the difference in crowd noise between pre and post WrestleMania, I can't even think of anything to compare it to. It is like a completely different audience. Joe, what'd you think about the way that we kicked off the first Monday Night Raw of the Austin era?
Well, we are definitely kicking off a new era here, and one thing that happens here is that Vince McMahon introduces a new belt.
Yeah.
It's the Big Eagle belt. I don't remember the strap on it was blue.
Yeah.
Like navy blue, and I don't remember that, but I do remember the Big Eagle belt, obviously. But that was cool to see, and when Austin came down with the old belt, he threw it on Vince's toe, and Vince just oversold it so hard it made me laugh. But yeah, this was a great segment. It's again another horrible stunner on Mr. McMahon's part here. But man, the crowd is just lit up for this. We've had some decent moments for Raw after WrestleMania up to this point, but this has to be the start of that Raw after WrestleMania being a must-see TV.
Yeah.
So this is a pretty good start to this particular show.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of you. The moment Vince McMahon comes down with this new belt over his shoulders and the crowd just letting him have it. And I lost it when Mr. McMahon goes over and reprimands the sound guy. Is this mic on? You can see him just bitching. And that was just such a beautiful touch. That was masterful. And then the complete 180 for this crowd, the moment the glass breaks, Stone Cold comes down and they're just craze for him the entire time. From the moment he throws the belt at Vince's feet till he stuns him, and that crowd completely came unglued. At WrestleMania, they went pretty nuts when he won the belt, but I think this was maybe even louder.
Yeah.
This was crazy how loud this crowd was. And it really is setting the tone for a completely different era of wrestling. And I know we keep on saying that, but it's completely true. It's like night and day, like a switch has been turned on.
Yeah.
And Stone Cold is leading the charge here. And Bartlett, you pointed it out, you could just see in Austin's face that he knew it was a home run. And everything they did out there was just hitting every mark. A hell of a fucking blow-off show. Most of the time, these blow-off shows are garbage.
Yeah.
And this one started off hot as hell.
Yeah. Yeah, and let's see if we can keep that going with our first match of the night. LOD 2000, Hawk and Animal with Sonny defeats Los Boricuas, Jesus Castillo, and Jose Estrada by pinfall in 34 seconds. Man, Hawk and Animal really look like shit with these outfits. I still can't get over it. Sonny, on the other hand, she looks like she's wearing a really skimpy version of Bam Bam Bigelow's pyro vest from 1995, and I fucking love it.
She just needs the firearms.
Well, they have the perfect opportunity to do an Austin Powers, flames out the jubblies like
Caliber.
The caliber, yeah.
I'd like to see her do a very slow cartwheel.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, 34 seconds. That's it. This was over with a doomsday device before it even really got started. Hawk and Animal picked Sonny up on their shoulders afterwards, and all I could think is how they probably ought to disinfect their biceps after that. And we quickly moved away. So really nothing much to add here. They didn't look any better or worse than their debut at WrestleMania. And I'm really just not sure what we're doing with this iteration of LOD 2000. Joe, what'd you think of this?
I'll keep it short. We can save the time for talking about more exciting things later. The only thing I can think of here is Sonny is great in this role because she's never been a babyface character, but she's always been a babyface pretty much since she's been there, other than the first few months with that stupid Body Donna's thing.
But even then, the crowds cheered for her.
Right, so it's surprising that it took them this fucking long to put her in a role like that. Even though it's shitty LOD 2000, they probably just could have done something for the past couple years. Outside of that, it's 34-second squash match, so I don't have much else to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to have much to add to what you two said either. Animal and Hawk just rip apart Jose and Jesus from the beginning. Immediate doomsday device. You could still hear the echo of the bell, and they get the doomsday device. And my lord, Jose and Jesus deserved Jobber of the Week, but unfortunately, there is someone a little more deserving tonight. But this was definitely a Class A jobber match.
Yeah. Yeah, LOD went through Los Boricuas like a greasy spoon through a soggy burrito? Is that a good... No? Okay.
It was about as good as this match.
Okay. That's the kind of feedback I love. Thank you. Moving along, we finally got to my boy Kevin, oh my god, Kelly. He was backstage in some kind of production room. I guess Vince McMahon had just called the police.
Some kind of boiler room?
No, there was a stack of monitors there that was quite hastily thrown together, I think.
Well, to make it not look like a boiler room.
I guess Vince McMahon has just called the police. I repeat, Vince McMahon has just called the police.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
He was irate. He was irate. And he wants Stone Cold Steve Austin arrested now. That moved to the Old Guard, New Guard commercial that debuted at WrestleMania. And I had to note here, I never heard it this way before, but it really strikes me how much Ernie Ladd sounds like a cross between Morgan Freeman and Aaron Neville.
Yeah, a little bit.
Kevin Kelly was back in the jobber locker room after that. And I guess the DOA had tried to warn Stone Cold about the police being called. And Stone Cold rightfully told them to fuck off, or at least that's how I'm interpreting it.
I was sad to hear they didn't all get a stunner, though.
Yeah. That bevy of jobbers behind Kevin in the locker room. Who the fuck were those guys?
Dark match guys.
Yeah. So I just wanted to pause it here real quick. This was a quick segment, but how iconic is it that we have Vince McMahon calling the cops on Austin? In this day and age now, it almost feels passé. But Ryan, I think this was the first time that this happens. Am I wrong?
I think it might be the second time he was arrested.
Second time.
Yeah, because remember the stunner at the Garden?
Yep.
When they took him away in cuffs and JR said he's going directly to jail.
Oh, that's right. My bad.
But still great to see it. This is going to be a pretty common occurrence where Stone Cold gets arrested by the call of Vince McMahon. It's good to see it continue here, and it continues the soap opera going. So I like it. I didn't like hearing the DOA was involved with anything with Stone Cold, but outside of that, a good little backstage segment.
Yeah, agreed. We are officially balls deep in the Vince McMahon versus Stone Cold rivalries here. So this is the beginnings of it. So there's plenty more to come.
Yeah, I love that turn of phrase, Joe. Did you guys know that Balls Deep is the name of my boat?
Yes.
Yeah, I did recall that now that you mention it again.
Yeah. Is there anything else you guys want to bring up or talk about? Or do we maybe want to just... We've got something special here, but look at what it's surrounded by. Do we want to come up with anything?
We have a key segment coming up here.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
Don't be downplaying
Bartlett's been waiting for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get then to our next match. The Kurgan with the Jackal defeats Chains by submission in 2 minutes and 14 seconds. And if that weren't disgusting enough, Chains is our jobber of the week. Take it, Ryan.
Thank you, Bartlett. It's been a while since we've had a jobber of the week. It feels good to be back in the saddle again here. Chains was born Brian Lee Harris on November 26, 1966 in St. Petersburg, Florida. And if his last name is ringing any bells for you, it's because he is the real-life cousin of the Nazi fuck brothers.
Oh, jeez.
As if he didn't have enough going against him already.
Wow.
Did not know that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I didn't know that either until I started this research.
It all makes sense, though.
Yeah.
But he has no tattoos that we know of. He was trained by Rocky Montana and made his in-ring debut in the summer of 1988.
That's Tony's cousin, right?
Down in Florida, yeah.
Yeah, they're strange, but he debuted in the summer of 1988 for Jerry Jarrett's Continental Wrestling Association in Memphis, Tennessee. He has used the ring names Primetime Brian Lee, Bulldozer, Bulldozer for Hire, Killdozer. Killdozer.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Yep. The Imposter Taker.
What?
Well, yeah, the fake Undertaker.
Yeah, my bad.
And Chains. Chains stayed with Jarrett's CWA through the merger and name change to USWA up until 1991 when he left to try to make it at one of the big promotions. In 91, he would job out for 2 WCW televised matches, the first losing to the Z-Man at Clash of the Champions, and then losing to Diamond Dallas Page and the Diamond Stud with teammate Chris Sullivan. Then, in late 91, Chains had one untelevised match with the WWF, losing to Kevin Von Erich. It was a tryout match for both wrestlers. Chains was not offered a spot on the roster after the match. In February of 1992, Chains joined Jim Cornette's new and upcoming promotion, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and would become a SMW mainstay until his departure in 95, and was quickly pushed as the promotion's top babyface. Jesus. Chains became SMW's very first heavyweight champion after winning a championship tournament to crown the inaugural champ, defending Dutch Mantell, Dirty White Boy, Paul Orndorff, and Buddy Landell.
Oh man. Play it.
There it is.
He's the originator of that sound, let's not forget. As well as winning the SMW Tag Team Championships twice, both times with partner Chris Candido, and both times winning and losing the belts to the Droopy Arm Express.
Oh no.
Then, on the 4th of July, 1994 episode of Monday Night Raw, Chains made his WWF television debut as the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase's ill-conceived fake Undertaker. This story concluded when the fake Undertaker was defeated by the real Undertaker in an extremely underwhelming match at the 94 SummerSlam. Originally, the idea was for Lee to continue to portray the Imposter Taker for some time and even having a few more matches with the real Undertaker. But after the match and storyline's reception, the WWF dropped all future plans after SummerSlam and sent Chains back to Smoky Mountain. Chains briefly wrestled for ECW in 96, debuting as Raven's Bodyguard, or Bulldozer for Hire. Also had a very short feud with Terry Funk before leaving in early 97. In June of 97, Chains started his longest stint with the WWF, debuting as Chains, a member of a biker faction named the Disciples of Apocalypse, made up of himself, his 2 Nazi fuck cousins, and Crush, their mighty leader. Throughout 97 and 98, Chains, along with the DOA and a handful of other equally useless factions, absolutely tortured wrestling fans with their stupid gang warfare storyline. Things slowed down for the DOA after their leader Crush left the WWF in protest of the Montreal Screwjob. Chains would take over as leader of the DOA, but thankfully the faction was used less and less on WWF television, and by the summer of 98 he was let go by the company. His final match with the WWF was on June 15th, 1998's Monday Night Raw, losing to Val Venis. After his release from the WWF, he pretty much disappeared into obscurity, wrestling only for very small-time indie promotions outside of a very, very short stint with TNA in 2002. Chain's final match was on June 27th, 2014, losing to Weatherby Incorporated with tag team partner Lee Condry in a online streaming match for NWA Saw in Millersville, Tennessee. Brian Lee Harris' lifetime record is 409 wins, 360 losses, and 45 draws, so he may not have the losses to make him a true jobber, but anyone who gets drug up the ramp by their head by the stupid fucking claw move by the Kurgan is 100% worthy of Jobber of the Week.
Yeah. I need a doctor to work on me after hearing all that.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Glad it's done.
I think it's hilarious that he was called Killdozer, because Killdozer has a very different meaning nowadays than it did back then.
Oh, I'm not sure I know.
Yeah, that guy that's out in the Midwest that retrofitted a fucking bulldozer into a tank. That's what he called it, was the Killdozer.
Oh, okay. I guess I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah, that was much more interesting than anything that this fucking guy ever did. Man, I was really hoping that these fucking clowns were gone, all of them, but they're not, so here we are. Let's not forget that all of the Kurgan's power is in his traps, so he did a really bad job of selling all of it. Just the whole powerhouse monster thing, not just selling defense.
Wait, screams? Did you catch him scream?
I did, yeah. I actually was sitting there asking myself, does he have an accent? Or is he just, like, maybe impaired in some way? I don't know, because he's screaming, but I can't understand what he, like...
Might just be, like, gargantuism or something.
Yeah, I wonder which disorder it is that affects nothing but the traps.
I think that's a lat pull down.
Or it's shrugs. He only does shrugs, no other exercise.
We got a split screen of Vince McMahon in the parking garage waiting for the police to arrive, so that was interesting, at the very least. Did I mention how fucking terrible of a wrestler the Kurgan is? The Kurgan applied the claw directly to the forehead of Chains, and I guess that claw is called the Paralyzer. I'm just going to keep calling it the claw.
Very unique and creative name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This was just as the Jackal was yelling at JR that this was all JR's fault. JR and Michael Cole, much like myself, had no idea what the fuck he was talking about. But then I popped. I fucking popped as the Kurgan wouldn't let go of the claw and used the claw to drag Chains up the ramp. Just because. If only this was Chains' last match, that would have been poetry, but...
Instead, he's going to get taken out by the porn star.
Yeah, I'll take what I can get. This was just an enormous waste of time. But I did want to ask Ryan, now that you have like a much deeper, educated understanding of the nuances of Chains, what did you think of this match?
I don't have anything to really add, if that tells you. Chains is still terrible. Kurgan is still terrible. The best part of the match is Chains being drug out by his head, but what made it even better and really solidified his Jobber of the Week is that we cut the camera and we don't even see him get totally drug up the ramp. We cut away from it before that even finishes. That's how fucking worthless Chains is.
I'm sorry, I don't have anything here. This is garbage versus garbage.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, not even the dragging up the ramp could save it for me.
I did forget to mention that Chains got the jobber treatment at the start of this too. Like no entrance, no fanfare, no music, no Titan motorcycles, no nothing. He was already in the ring.
Rightfully so.
Yep. Getting the hell away from that, the police were showing up to the parking garage, and they looked like they had no idea what the hell was happening. Talk about a bunch of babyface young recruits. This was like Police Academy 7 or some shit. After that, we got a great commercial for Jack's Action Figures Slammers, featuring Mankind. That was pretty awesome. I don't remember that commercial at all, but that was very well done.
His little commercial that he cut there was vintage Mankind there. That was great.
Back in the garage, Vince was leading the police to find Steve Austin. And back in the arena, the crowd was booing Tennessee Lee as he introduced our next match. Jeff Jarrett with Tennessee Lee defeats Aguila by submission in 2 minutes and 38 seconds. Jeff was back on the Tennessee stud again, and it was lit up like an angry red hemorrhoid on the asshole of existence. I hated seeing it.
Beautiful.
Aguila's mask has a unicorn horn on it, and I hated that. Tennessee Lee joined commentary. I immediately had to pause this and take a breath. The shitty cartoon character act that this guy is putting on, it is just too much for me. He's like a goddamn throwback to the Depression era in the way that he talks. He sounds like he ought to be selling shit on Pappy O'Daniel's Flower Hour and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou or something. I tell you, you line up and you vote for Pappy O'Daniel. Pass the biscuits. And that's where my patience died for this. Aguila sucks. Jeff Jarrett was fine, but he is in a sea of shit here. Surprisingly, I got interested again when the Lethal Weapon, Steve Blackman, ran into the ring and attacked Jarrett. He kicked a little ass just real quick before Jarrett and Tennessee Lee got away. Pennsylvania Joe, as our resident asshole for Tennessee Lee, I was happy to go to you first for this. I kid around because it's fun to hate on Tennessee and all, but Aguila legitimately sucks. What did you think of this?
Well, the way you described Tennessee Lee there are the reasons exactly why I love him so much. He's very entertaining to me. Aguila is not, though. I have not been a fan of him. But a very impressive performance by Double J here, considering he was plowing through Jenny Flowers all night the night before. So that was nice to see. Good stamina.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you, Joe. Really happy to see Tennessee Lee. I am so glad he didn't ride that horse back to Tennessee. And I'm also happy to see that horse is also still with us, and Double J rode it down. That was beautiful. Aguila, whatever you want to call him, he's not. I could only give out so many Jobber of the Weeks in one episode, but we had many people deserving of it tonight. Tennessee Lee and Jeff Jarrett are really the only two things entertaining here until Steve Blackman shows up. So that is something I'm looking forward to. A Steve Blackman, Double J feud sounds perfect to me. They're perfect mid-carders to go up against each other and I think have an entertaining match. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Like I said, I have a fun time hating on Tennessee Lee and the horse and all that. It's fun to come up with new ways to criticize them. But overall, this is good. I'm looking forward to a program between them.
So much better than the NWA fucking storyline.
Yeah.
Let's go backstage again, because the police, they finally got to Austin, and they had him in handcuffs leading him out. Austin managed to get a headbutt into Mr. McMahon's gut as they were going past, pushing McMahon into lockers. I loved that. And I also laughed when all four of those cops and Stone Cold crammed back into that fucking Ford Interceptor.
There's like six of them in the cruiser there.
Mr. McMahon then made his way to the ring with Commissioner Slaughter and Jerry Briscoe. Vince offered an explanation and requested some respect in the midst of the chorus of boos. Vince ended up summing it up with, I gave Austin a choice, he selected his choice, and damn it, I selected mine. That was followed by Triple H saying the WWF is going to come to an X-rated end tonight. Like, that would be a really bad decision given the recent success of the company, I would think. Yeah. But whatever. Then we got a great view of the Nation of Domination. The Rock and Farouk were out front. The Rock apparently can't walk right and has been spitting up blood all night. That was just great. He cut a promo on Ken Shamrock there and then thanked Farouk for everything that Farouk has done for The Rock, promising that the Nation is going to be stronger than it's ever been. And that is what closed out the first hour of Raw. Guys, this feels like a whole new show. I know I said it at the start with the way that the crowd has been reacting, but the way that, I don't even know what you'd call it. Like, the way the stories are they're more well booked. The segments are running more smoothly. The recap at the end of this first hour, much more efficient. Like, this is the polished product that I remember so well from back in the day. And it just blows my mind that we didn't have this 2 weeks ago. So, Joe, what did you think of how we ended the first hour here?
Yeah, not that the last few months have not been exciting, but
Right.
it's almost like they've been sandbagging a little bit.
Yeah.
And then after WrestleMania, it's like, okay, guys, we're going balls to the wall here. When Austin was getting arrested and carted away by the cops, I was let down by that. I was expecting some sort of swerve or something, or he was going to like run away from the cops or something, but we didn't get that. They found him, they put him in cuffs, they threw him in the cruiser, and he's gone. Like that was it. So it was a little bit of a letdown, but then Vince going back out to the crowd, that just turns it around. That's that bitchy Vince or Mr. McMahon character. I loved JR's quote saying, I don't think Vince is going to be getting a lot of Christmas cards from Albany this year. They were just booing the shit out of him, and that's just great to see. Vince McMahon and Steve Austin are like the two best actors in wrestling right now, so anything they do is going to be just gold, and this was great to see. More teasers about DX. They're really teasing this, so they're doing a nice job of telling us, like, you want to stay tuned in to this channel to see what we're going to do or see what DX is going to do later. And then, the Nation promo, it seems like The Rock and Farouk have made up, but who knows? We'll see what happens.
Starting with the Vince McMahon section, that was fantastic. It was short and sweet. He just came out and said Stone Cold made his choice, and damn it, I made mine, and threw down the mic. That was perfect Mr. McMahon shit. Triple H continuing to tickle our taints about changes coming up for DX. And then this Nation segment was good too. The Rock is apparently spitting up blood because of an ankle lock. Okay. But he apologizes to Farouk, but you could just see that maybe it's not all that genuine. And Bartlett, to your point about how different this feels, I think these three things back to back here highlight it. It's that they are transitioning from one story to the next effortlessly.
Yeah.
And it fits and it works. And then the final thing they do works right into the next match. So it's like they finally got a director there who's able to put the pieces together and make them make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And I couldn't have asked for a better transition as we go into our next match. Ken Shamrock and Steve Blackman defeat the Nation of Domination. This is The Rock and Farouk, with D'Lo, and Mark Henry at the outside by pinfall in 4 minutes and 23 seconds. JR dropped Blue Chipper, so of course I popped for that.
Yep.
Talking about The Rock. I noticed a sign in the crowd saying 6 is DX's lucky number.
Hey, someone's reading the dirt sheets.
That clued me in on what some of this news was going to be, because I honestly had no idea up until this point. Like you said, like you both mentioned, they were doing a really good job of hinting at changes, but this was the first concrete clue, I guess is what I should say. Shamrock and Farouk started this off, and the work looked great. They were a great pairing. And I don't know how exactly to describe that, because Farouk is such a solid worker. He appears to be so stiff. And with Ken Shamrock, he sells stiff so well. You can work stiff with Ken Shamrock, so maybe it was stiff. I don't know, but I loved Shamrock and Farouk in the ring together. Blackman was in next against Farouk. Blackman's progress remains steady, I think. It's hard to tell just because Farouk is that good at making adjustments in the ring. But Blackman is definitely improving. And that's how it stayed for the bulk of the match here. Shamrock and Blackman trading off against Farouk. But when it came time for a beaten down Farouk to tag out, The Rock said, "I'm out of here," and left ringside. That was it for the match. Shamrock hit a belly to belly and got a clean 3 counts on Farouk on the mat. But that wasn't the end of this segment. Farouk got on the mic and called out The Rock, saying, "Since you like to wear fine clothes and jewelry, tonight you're going to wear an ass whipping." The Rock came back down, and after going eyeball to eyeball, the fight broke out. Officials and the Nation broke it up. The Rock tried leaving again, but Farouk tried calling him back. This time, though, The Rock gave a exaggerated arched eyebrow signal to the Nation. D'Lo, and Mark Henry jumped Farouk from behind. Rock came back to the ring, joined in, and The Rock ended this all with a rock bottom. He talked some trash, gave an extra little kick for good measure, and the Nation, with their new official leader, The Rock, exited the ring. I'm not gonna lie here, I was pretty down on how the Nation's story played out during WrestleMania. But I'm so glad they saved this for Monday Night Raw. I thought this was a fantastic way to start to move us away from The Rock's program with Shamrock towards the program with Farouk. Ryan, it's like what you said earlier, we're transitioning all of these stories right now. It's not only freshened up the story, it's freshened up the dynamics of the Nation as a stable. I loved the match itself, the work was great, but I also just fucking loved the storytelling here. This continues to be the Nation, I should say, continues to be one of my favorite things going in wrestling here in 1998. Ryan, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, this match just continued how good this episode after WrestleMania really is. Shamrock and Farouk, I completely agree. They look fantastic together in the ring, and Blackman, he was no slouch when he got in there either with Farouk. And really, we had some really good segments already with Stone Cold and Vince, but this is the first good match that we had all night. Yeah. Everything else has been really jobber of the week material, but this one, it was firing on all cylinders like Ken Shamrock and his cycles. Outside of having this great match, at the end of it, we finally get The Rock becoming leader of the Nation, starting his feud with Farouk. It's like, how many great things could happen tonight? Is there any more? It worked out phenomenally. These storylines just keep on getting better and better, and I'm completely piqued waiting to see what's going to happen between The Rock and Farouk after this, and having the people's eyebrow be the signal that made it all happen was just perfection.
Yeah, all of us have been enjoying this slow build of this underlying story between The Rock and Farouk, and what's been happening and what's been building. And again, like we mentioned, they saved it for this episode, and it went very well. I think that it was a bit of a surprise to me because the way that they built this up, you would think that The Rock would branch off and do his own thing.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that. I thought this was a very clever way of doing it with, these guys are siding with The Rock. Holy shit. So that's a holy shit moment that is very good and makes you want to tune in next week and the week after to see where they're going to go with that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like I said, I'm not going to belabor it. My favorite ongoing story in the WWF right now. I fucking love this shit. Speaking of things that I fucking love, after this, we got to rewind back to Pete fucking Rose getting the tombstone at WrestleMania last night. There were a couple good one-liners mixed in there. I popped all over again for that. Almost made me go back and rewatch the whole segment. But then we started the seizure cam for DX. And when I say DX, now just Triple H and Chyna coming down to the ring. It's a good thing I have something to bite on here so I don't swallow my tongue. JR gave us the terrible news that Try's feud with Owen Hart wasn't over and, in fact, has escalated. God. Thankfully, Try didn't talk about that at all, but what Triple H did start on was Mike Tyson and everything that happened with Shawn Michaels losing the title to Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania last night. Triple H laid the blame for all of that squarely on Shawn Michaels and then neatly tied everything up saying that DX was now Triple H's deal. He's there to form the DX Army, and in order to have an army, you need to have soldiers. He introduced X-Pac. X-Pac came out. By the way, X-Pac, he loves the crotch chopping.
As much as Mike Tyson?
No, not quite that much.
Nobody loves it that much.
X-Pac kicked off his welcome promo saying that Hulk Hogan sucks and then went on to insult Eric Bischoff. X-Pac also said that Kevin Nash and Scott Hall would be right here with him if they weren't being held hostage in WCW. And I didn't really get that. I just assumed he was like talking up the situation and that wasn't true because Kevin Nash and Scott Hall had obscenely sweet deals that they were cruising through over in WCW. So I don't really think that was true. Maybe one of you guys can correct me, but I think they were fine where they were at.
That was my understanding.
Yeah. X-Pac then said that he was there to rip ass on the WWF. Whatever the hell that means. Well, I think I know what it means, but
yeah, that only has one meaning as far as I know.
And that pretty much wrapped up that part of this. We moved to a Bop It encore of the Sable bomb on Luna last night. And it just reminded me of the scenes from Dark Side of the Ring where Mick Foley was talking about how badly that moment just destroyed Luna's fucking psyche.
I don't know. Sable makes me want to bop it.
10, 3, 2, 1. That collect calling service is going to be bringing us the next pay-per-view, Unforgiven. And then, holy shit, we got an introduction video for Val Venis. Val was laying there watching himself in what I presume was a porn, and he started with, "Hello, ladies."
He fixes the cable.
Yeah. Man, that took me back. I don't even know what to say about this. Like, I feel like I watched so many Val Venis matches, but I couldn't tell you what happened in any of them, really. What's also funny here is that, like, back in the day, I would not have been able to say this. I just rolled with it. But in hindsight, now you can clearly tell that every word of this was written by Vince Russo.
Yeah.
And it's so shocking with, like I said, with that hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
It ended with the graphic saying Val Venis is coming, of course.
To penetrate.
But not day and night. Not yet.
Nah.
I thought commentary immediately after that was hilarious because JR was not saying a single word and the King was loving it. We'll just pause it here briefly. Not only did we get the return of the 1-2-3 Kid, but we also got an introduction to yet another occupational gimmick cartoon character that just so happens to be a porn star in this case. I don't know. Why am I getting the feeling that this is one step forward, two steps back? Ryan, what'd you have on this?
The DX stuff was great. I thought Triple H did a fantastic job of taking the reins over from Shawn Michaels here and becoming the leader. The way he called out Shawn Michaels, that can lead to storylines years down the road. He did a great job saying we need new blood, and he brings out X-Pac. The 1-2-3 fucking Kid comes out, and he goes a little crazy. He says, "Hey, Hulk Hogan, you suck, pal." I like that line. I was scratching my head over the Kevin Nash, Scott Hall stuff as well, because my understanding was they had some pretty lucrative contracts, so I'm not sure they wanted to go anywhere, but everything here worked, and it was another very strong non-wrestling story segment in what is becoming a iconic Monday Night Raw.
Yeah. Leading
into, obviously, a mid-carder, but another big name of the Attitude Era, Val Venis, shows up, throwing dick puns left and right. He's putting Triple H to shame in this fucking vignette. And I know, Bartlett, you were saying maybe a step back, and I'm saying maybe this is how you do a occupational gimmick in the new era. You make him a porn star, and we'll see another one in a little bit as a pimp.
Yeah.
Another occupational gimmick, and both of their gimmicks work through the Attitude Era.
That's fair. That is very fair.
So a little bit of information I dug up from the Observer about Sean Waltman. I guess there's trouble in paradise between Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan during this time.
Oh.
Sean Waltman broke his neck and was recovering, and Eric Bischoff fired him via FedEx.
Another one.
Yeah.
So then he came over here, and I guess, according to Meltzer, Hall and Nash did ask for a release when that happened, and the release was not granted. So there is a little bit of trouble there, I guess, which is probably what all of this is referring to.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Sean Waltman comes out here, and I've said this before when other guys have tried to, I guess, debut and make an impact. Sean Waltman is a cruiserweight. He's not a big guy, doesn't have a big presence to him, but he shows up in black boots, jeans, leather jacket, DX.
Yeah.
Like, he looks fucking cool. And he looks like he is part of DX already. And he just walked in the door. So maybe some people could take notes and realize that, okay, this is how you make an impact when you make your first appearance.
This is how you rip ass.
This is how you rip ass and go so far up someone's ass that you'll know what they had for breakfast. This was a great promo. There was a lot of fire in this promo, and the crowd was loving it the whole time. So I really liked this promo. I thought it was good. The WWF in general, they are basically building their own fan base right now, and it's growing rapidly.
Yeah.
And it's what's going to help them eventually take WCW down. But this episode is a good signal of that they're building their own fan base, and Val Venis is a big part of that. Val Venis, some of the great promos ever. He hasn't had a match yet on TV, but when he does all those promos before his matches start, I can't wait to hear all that stupid shit.
Not to mention the choppy pee-pee.
Yes. And Sean Morley, the guy playing Val Venis, he really owns this gimmick too, which...
Yeah.
You think about Dustin Runnels owning that gold dust gimmick. It's like the same thing here.
Yeah, I will absolutely give you that. I'm very curious to see what I think of Val Venis and the way that Val Venis progresses now, 25 years later. Back in the day, I was always just meh. I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong. I always preferred The Godfather to Val Venis, but I'm really, really curious to see how this is going to hold up now that we're older and wiser, if you will. Let's go to our next match. Mark Maro with Sable defeats Takam Michinoku by pinfall in 1 minute and 46 seconds. I meant specifically Mark Maro held up pretty well in my opinions. And I will also add, Sable looks best with the ponytail. Not the 80s perm thing that she was doing before. She actually looked all right here. But as soon as this match started, Luna came out immediately after music ended and requested a rematch against Sable, which Sable quickly agreed to, even agreeing to any kind of match anywhere. Unfortunately, Luna requested an evening gown match, being set for Unforgiven, with the loser getting stripped down to bra and underwear, and I groaned. Things reset there in the ring. In the match, Sable was a distraction. The referee did not see the low blow from Maro, which probably wouldn't have mattered anyway, since Maro strangled Taka with his wrist tape blatantly in front of the referee, and there were no repercussions. And Maro ended up winning with a clean pin. And after some little extra storytelling there in the ring, 3 random Japanese men rushed the ring, attacked Taka, and then ran away again. Nobody knew who they were, including commentary, including the crowd, and I barely remember some of the details there, but mostly I was just confused because I don't remember the timeline at all. And that was it. The light heavyweight champion jobbed out for a mid-carder to put over an evening gown match. Joe, what'd you think of this?
Well, again, it's another segment that is carrying us into that new era. They are just going balls deep again into this edgy content. They basically tell everybody, hey, a woman will be stripped down to her underwear on the next pay-per-view. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to fucking buy that and watch it.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. And the other part of this with these strange men running in, I thought that was very well done. Even though nobody knows who they are, they came down in street clothes. So they weren't wearing fucking Midnight Express ring gear. And I thought it was well done.
Yeah. I didn't think any of this was terrible, even though we don't maybe like the idea that Sable's going to end up wrestling again in a singles match against Luna, but I thought Luna did a fantastic job coming down here in the promo that she cut, just the way she like gyrates around and rubs herself. It's just really something special when Luna is out there, and it's a shame it's all to prop up Sable because, you know, she's an actual wrestler, but I definitely remember the evening gown match between Luna and Sable. It was great when Luna actually laid out the bra and panties match and she said,
If you wear Brian panties, you little slut.
That was fantastic. And then JR says, so is this like a tuxedo match? And I put my head into my hands when he said that, because why would you ever remind people of the terrible Whitman Fink debacle that we had a while ago? That was bad move on JR's part.
It was so long ago, too.
It was. Like, why bring it up? But the match, as you said, we have the light heavyweight champ that completely jobs out to a mid-carder here. But I didn't mind the shit after, mainly because, hey, Taka's having a program that doesn't involve Brian Christopher or Aguila. So I'll take it. But seeing who was there, was that Kai?
I think it's the Kai and Tai guys. Like,
yeah.
Eventually we're going to learn it's them. But yeah, as of right now, we have no idea. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I could only remember Funaki. I don't remember. I remember the name of Kai and Tai as the stable, but Funaki, and then I can't remember what the other two guys were. But I used to have the blue Indeed shirt. I love that.
I remember the manager was Yamaguchi-san. The choppy guy.
All right, so let's keep it going here. What do we... Oh. Okay, well, let's get through our next match. The Midnight Express, Bodacious Bart and Bombastic Bob with Jim Cornette and Dan the Beast Severn.
What? What's that? You're talking crazy.
Well, no, keep him off the mic.
Defeat the Headbangers, Mosh and Thrasher, by pinfall in 4 minutes and 2 seconds to win the NWA World Tag Team Championships. Dan Severn came out in a suit and was introduced as the NWA champion. That was just casually dropped in there with no further detail.
Destroys all credibility of this man.
And the angle, and just everything going on around him.
Yeah.
We got a split screen while Cornette was putting over Severn. We were conveniently ignoring the match in the ring. We got the news that DX was also going to introduce another new member later on, so that's exciting. Cornette was saying some shit about twins, sons of different mothers, and I don't know. I totally lost the plot there. After the match was over, Cornette instructed Severn to go into the ring and apply a couple of very good-looking suplexes to the Headbangers. Those were tight as hell.
Well,
it's to be expected. It's a fucking Greco-Roman wrestler, but as well as a quick submission on one of them, and then this was over. This whole thing, this was such a cluster. I have no idea what to think of it. Ryan, what'd you have on this?
That's the biggest problem. I don't have a problem with the Headbangers as wrestlers. I don't have a problem with Hardcore Holly or Sparkplug Holly and Bart Gunn.
Whatever his name is.
Yeah. All of these guys are decent ring workers. It's just this whole NWA, the new Midnight Express, all of it just doesn't work. It's stupid. We learned it from the moment the NWA came in. The moment they started with this angle, nobody gave a shit about it. And so much so that they figured no one would even know that Dan the Beast Severn was just given the NWA Heavyweight Championship and not Double J that never lost it. So they just glaze over that like they do this match. I guess it's certainly better than putting the Headbangers up against the Droopy Arm Express, but not much better. After the match, Dan Severn comes in and jobs out the Headbangers, and man, here's another example. If they wouldn't have had Jobber of the Week already, they might have got it here as well. But other than that, it was a forgettable segment outside of Dan Severn, and they did a good job of keeping him off the mic. And Bartlett, why don't you give us another sample, if you would?
I'm very happy to be here. I'm happy to be doing this and happy to be the NWA champion. My good friend, Mr. Jim Cornette, has given it to me. I don't know what I did to earn it, but I'm happy to have it now.
Yeah, that was a recording from Dan the Beast Severn about this match.
Yeah, live.
I can't wait to hear him talk on here and find out if I'm actually remembering all of this correctly.
Well, we heard him the last time we saw him. You're correct.
Okay. Just making sure.
We saw him maybe 6 months ago now.
Right.
And he talked then.
Dan Severn is a fucking monster.
Yeah,
he is.
This is a really shitty way to bring him in.
Yeah.
The credibility is that he's the NWA champion. Come on, this guy has more pedigree than that you could have used. I guess him and Cornette have a history because Severn worked for Smoky Mountain, but Even Jim Cornette introducing him, I feel, was weak too. I feel like there could have been somebody else or some other way to bring this guy in.
I think probably the best way for him to come in would be just solo, to like interrupt the match and kick everyone's ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even like because of his size, maybe give him the monster treatment and have him run through a few jobbers. It's just singles, no fanfare, almost like the Goldberg strategy. Just run through a few people, build up that aura of the monster, and then get him in a storyline. What really pisses me off the most about this is the NWA thing, because Cornette puts himself over as all about the story, all about continuity, all about making sense in what you're doing. And this just does not make sense. So is he just not getting listened to? Has he given up at this point? I don't know. But this is not what I think of when I think of Jim Cornette in the wrestling business. No wonder he wanted to get the fuck away from this. Oh, man. It makes my brain hurt. All right, let's get away from that to Stone Cold Steve Austin. He got one phone call from jail, and he used it to call into Raw.
How beautiful is that?
The only thing that would have been better is if he would have done it during that last match. I guess next week on Raw, Vince McMahon is going to find out just how pissed off Stone Cold Steve Austin is about the situation. After a commercial break, we came back to the construction of Big Blue there in the ring, the steel cage. And then the lights went out, the organ music hit, and Hellfire and Brimstone came out. Kane and Paul Bearer were up at the top of the ramp to cut a promo. Paul made mention of The Undertaker needing to change in order to beat Kane, and I liked that. Helps us get to that new iteration of The Undertaker. But the bottom line here is that Kane is challenging The Undertaker to an Inferno match at Unforgiven, where the loser will be lit on fire.
Easy rules to understand.
This was brief, so we're going to keep it brief here. Ryan, the Inferno match is booked at the same pay-per-view as the Evening Gown match. We're getting into match gimmicks here. What'd you have
Take
on
my
this?
money.
This was another solid promo by Paul. They always are, but it was clearly just, hey, we're in the middle of building this cage. Can you go out there and maybe burn a few minutes? And he does successfully. He even brings up that he had a dream like Martin Luther King, but that his dream was the Inferno match.
Burning a man alive, yeah.
Yeah, quite a different dream that he had, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, again, we're getting into ridiculous Attitude Era stuff. Porn stars, evening gowns, Inferno matches. We are really into it now. And also, we talked about WrestleMania 14, the match between Kane and Undertaker, and how that story's not over. It's clearly not over. Well, this is a good next step here, is to have them try to light each other on fire.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. I remember watching that. I'm pretty sure I watched it with you guys. Or
probably.
At your house, Ryan, on the cheater box.
On the cheater box, yeah. Not just that, but like everything I remember hearing after about this Inferno match and just how dangerous and by the seat of their pants they fucking did this thing.
Yeah, yet another thing that's going to be neat to look at in hindsight. All right, let's go into our final match of the night. The New Age Outlaws defeat Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie by pinfall in a steel cage in 4 minutes and 41 seconds to win the WWF Tag Team Championships. That's right, folks, 24 hours for Cactus and Chainsaw. The Road Dogg came out in a Job Squad shirt. That blew my mind. I didn't know Job Squad was a thing before Al Snow.
I didn't know either.
Yeah, I was scratching my head when I saw that.
Yeah.
And he makes reference to it, too.
Yeah. I've always wanted one of those shirts. I love that. Pin me, pay me. Apparently, this match was ordered because Cactus and Chainsaw used the wrong dumpster at WrestleMania last night. So that just equates to rematch tonight. And I'm going to be honest, I had zero interest in this up until DX came out. I loved X-Pac beating Cactus Jack back into the ring. That was a great visual. Everybody beat up on Cactus while Terry Funk got tied up to the cage interior. That was a pretty funny visual, too. And this is where we get the official news. JR yelled, "The Outlaws have joined DX. My God, they're stronger than ever." And I groaned a little bit because that was a Vince McMahon line there. And that's it. We faded to black. I was conflicted on this. I know that this is going to go places and be entertaining and all that. I'm glad we're here. But I don't remember this feeling so forced and artificial. X-Pac, that was good. But this way that they just all of a sudden tied the New Age Outlaws into things, I can't help but think back to Shawn Michaels. DX formed so naturally and worked so naturally whenever it came together. Like, this has just the feeling of, well, Shawn's out, so now we have to scramble and put some shit together. And I know we talked a few times about how the New Age Outlaws were getting tryouts for DX, and we saw this coming, but I don't know, just the way that they executed this felt lackluster to me, and I'm hoping that next week on Monday Night Raw, we're going to get promos, we're going to get more storytelling that's going to wash away that feeling for me. I'm not doom and gloom about this, but I don't know, I thought it was much more significant whenever it happened back in the day. I don't know, but this is probably the most iconic version of DX. I don't remember it being so anticlimactic. Joe, what did you have on this match and the way that Raw ended tonight?
I don't feel that way about it because of the taint tickling that we've had with the Outlaws trying out auditioning for DX and all the bullshit with the dumpster and all that stuff. They're just this part of this asshole group. So it makes sense for me. And if my research is correct, this might be the last time we see the Big Blue on TV.
Oh.
So I was curious. I looked it up. I think this is probably it. But this was what we were building up to. This is what was being teased all night, was this new DX. We got a Bronco Buster from X-Pac, which was cool to see. Yeah. Really cool shot at the end of the show with all of them up on the top of the cage doing the crotch chopping. So yeah, I thought this was a really hot ending and a great way to get people to tune in next week.
Yeah, Joe, I'm definitely more in your camp in this. Like, I am a little bit over this feud, but I thought the way they wrapped everything up by the end, it really got my attention. At the start of it, though, we see the medics working on that nasty ass bruise on Charlie's backside. Bartlett, you brought that up during the match that you saw it, and man, that was a deep bruise.
Yeah.
But the match, there wasn't much of a match. This was a setup for the final two members of DX to join, and that was made clear the moment X-Pac came out, smacked Cactus 3 times in the head with a chair. Not quite a rock swing, but not too shabby either.
Yeah.
Then we get that beautiful spike pile driver by the ass man onto the chair. And then, did you guys see the Road Dogg use the worm before pinning Cactus?
Yeah.
That was interesting because we're very close to another wrestler that he'll make that basically his eyebrow raise, the worm. But by the time we had all of DX in there and the 2 new members, and the reason I agree with you, Joe, is because we've had months of them almost trying out for DX. So to me, it was fitting that they became the last 2 members here. And I thought it is a great way to replace Shawn. You lose one member of DX, one of the biggest stars in the business, so you replace him with 3 people. And as Bartlett, you pointed at, this is the most iconic version of the DX. So we're there, and man, what a Raw and what a way to end it. Like, there were just so many iconic moments in this Raw that it's really hard to believe they were all in one episode.
Yeah.
The key thing there too is we know all 3 of them. Like, we know who they are, rather than bringing in some unknown.
Yeah, you know what? That's a great way to look at it, because you're right, and like we all pointed out, they've had their tryouts over the past few months. Something about it just felt rushed. Like, X-Pac had this grand entrance and he got to cut a promo, and I know that's a little bit of a different scenario because he was coming back from a different company and he had all kinds of things to say about that, but I don't know. I just wish we could have maybe even gotten like a promo after the match from the Road Dogg. Maybe just a few lines saying, "Welcome to the new DX," or I don't know, something like that. But I don't know. All right. Like I said, we're going to get awesome things from this iteration of DX moving forward, so I'm not too worried about it. As I stated, though, we faded to black. So let's move it on over to highlights and lowlights. Ryan, why don't you take that first?
Well, highlight, man, it's sure hard to pick one in this episode, but I'm going to have to go with the new DX. So I'm putting together the announcement of X-Pac's return, his promo, and then the Outlaws joining. Just everything about it was amazing in my opinion. So I loved it. The low light, it's got to be the Kurgan vs. Chains match. Good God, could I care any less about a fucking match?
For me, my low light is that Kurgan versus Chains and also the LOD 2000 versus Bariqua's bullshit that we had there at the beginning.
Both pretty bad.
But my highlight is everything else on this show. I think every segment had some sort of meaning to it, and it makes me want to tune in next week to see what's going to happen with all of it.
Yeah, what a great way to put it. So my highlight was the progress in the Nation of Domination, the match, the storytelling there. I loved it. I'm a fucking mark for the Nation. I always have been. Low light, I thought there were a few options here, but I ended up going with Kurgan versus Chains, of course.
We got a threefer for that one.
An enormous pile of shit of a segment there. But, Joe, you are absolutely right in that there was a lot to choose from, and a huge part of that is that I want to tune in next week. What better way can you say that this was a successful episode than wanting to tune in? So, all right. Joseph, you wouldn't happen to have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around March 30th, 1998 for us, would you?
I do. Gentlemen, I have been slacking a little bit, or I was slacking and was not keeping up with the competition for the past couple months. So I have some quick notes about WCW here and what they've been doing since January. So starting in January, Dusty Rhodes turned heel and joined the NWO. This right here is probably why the 83 weeks kept going. Marty Jannetty debuted in WCW. That's what kept those winning ways happening there.
Breath of fresh air.
Nitro went to 3 hours in January.
Wow.
I didn't realize that.
Also, Thunder debuted in January on Thursday nights. The British Bulldog, we haven't heard about him in a long time. He made his debut in January, as did Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Raven's Flock has been established in WCW. The WCW Nitro video game was released for PlayStation in January. Scott Steiner turned heel in February at Super Brawl, dyeing his hair blonde, and now goes by Big Papa Pump.
Oh, nice. Holla if you hear me.
And another guy that's going to really keep those 83 weeks going, Brutus Beefcake, has joined the NWO as the Disciple in March.
So he's not the Booty Man yet?
No, he already was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You missed it.
You missed it, yeah. And also around this time is when the NWO started to split. So they started to split into the Wolfpack and NWO Hollywood factions. And that's pretty much what's going on at the competition. Speaking of the competition, Sean Waltman is the newest addition to WWF, and Dave Meltzer notes that this sends a message that WWF is willing to pay market value for top talent rather than publicly cry about the competition and the money that they were throwing around.
Buzzing. I like that.
Dave also noted, I thought this was interesting, that this proves that WWF is interested in smaller athletes and may show interest in some other guys later, like Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, and Rey Mysterio in the future.
I know 2 of those names. Who's this Chris guy you talk about?
Chrissy. Dave Meltzer also noted at the DX workout event that happened prior to WrestleMania that they introduced a guy to mock Owen Hart. So I could only think that would be Jason Sensation.
Oh,
but
boy.
He did not mention his name, so I'm not sure.
I thought it was Mr. Hanky.
Oh.
Last piece of news here is that Steven Regal is planning on starting with the WWF as soon as his WCW contract runs out in a few months.
Okay.
I always liked Regal.
Yeah, me too.
And that is all.
All right. Great news all around. Thank you, Joseph. Illuminating, as always. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. And what a hell of a show it was. I want to thank you again for joining us. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and tell all of your friends to tune in to the most bodacious Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on April 6th, 1998, with matches featuring Flash Funk, Matt Knowles, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.